Yo, what's going on, figure fiends? It's your boy, Mr. Action, back at you with another episode of Packed In Action Figure Reviews, where we give you that action that's packed in. And on today's episode, we are going to be doing a comparison review between the newly released, highly anticipated, as well as very controversial Hasbro Marvel Legends series Maximum Hulk, and we are going to be putting it up against what I've always considered to be one of the very few definitive versions of the character, the Diamond Select Marvel Select Immortal Hulk, which in my personal opinion has always been the more superior figure. But seeing that this latest release from Hasbro happens to be its maximum offering of the character, I figured what better than an opportunity than now to attain my first official Marvel Legends Hulk and see if it has what it takes to dethrone my Marvel Select Hulk. On today's comparison review, we'll be focusing on the overall amount of the figure, the aesthetics, the articulation, and as well as any additional accessories that the figure may come with. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get active. So first things first, jumping in and starting off with the overall amount between both of these figures. When the Marvel Select was first initially released, it was set at a price point of $29.99, which was a really great value considering the fact that if you did want to pick up a Marvel Legends Hulk, you would roughly be paying about $44 and some tax. So the fact that you were getting a bigger figure, as you know, Select is on a bigger scale, you were getting a bigger figure for a smaller price. So you honestly really can't beat that. Then moving along over to the Maximum Hulk, we do have it at a set price of $59.99, which was a bit of a head scratcher for a lot of people considering that when the promotional images for the figure dropped, a lot of people did notate that the figure did have pins in the legs, which was a indicator of reuse, which should not be considering that Hasbro is promoting this as their maximum figure. Not only that, but the Maximum Spider-Man that was released before it did not have any pins, so to see that we were kind of moving backwards was also a bit of a head scratcher. However, with that $59.99 price point, you are also getting additional accessories that do come with the figure, and they do look pretty cool if I do say so myself. But if we did have to compare the price between $29.99 and $59.99, the clear winner is going to be the Marvel Select Hulk. However, I will say Marvel Select is going out of business, unfortunately, you guys, so that does mean that the price value for it will fluctuate in the market. So if you did not get an opportunity to experience a Marvel Select Hulk, I would recommend that you do it very quickly as it is going away. Now moving right along over into the aesthetics of both of these figures, I can honestly say that both Hasbro and Marvel Select did a pretty phenomenal job at the overall execution and presentation of the character, man. Obviously, the biggest departure where you are going to see is going to be in the scaling. So with the Marvel Select, he is going to be standing roughly about 9.5 inches. And with our Marvel Legends Select, we are going to see him, with our Marvel Legends, he is going to be standing at about 8.5 inches. So about an inch difference. Some people do say that the Marvel Legends scaling does fit better with the rest of your Marvel Legends, obviously since it's within the same line. However, if you're anybody like me, you do like to have your bigger characters just be a little bit more bigger, and that's why I ultimately always like to have my Marvel Select as my stand-in display for my Hulk. But again, this is going to be entirely up to you, but if you want to know the size difference, you are looking at about an inch difference. Now, when it comes down to the overall sculpt, I do like how both of these figures look, and both of these figures are going to look similar because I do believe from the last that I researched that the sculptor who is responsible for the Marvel Select Hulk is also responsible for the Legends Hulk as well, and we can see how very apparent that is just by the overall proportions of the bodies. We can see that when it comes down to some of the muscular tone and definition, we can see that there are quite a few similarities between the two. However, where we do make a departure is going to be in the details, and boy does Marvel Select really know how to work the details, man. As we take a closer look at the muscular tone and definition of the Marvel Select Hulk, we can see that we do have different variations of greens on there. On certain parts of the figure, we do have lighter greens, and then we also do have darker greens to kind of highlight and make those muscular definitions pop a little bit more. And just looking at the Select compared to the Marvel Legends, honestly, the difference really is night and day. That is not in any way to say that the Marvel Legends Hulk paint work is bad in any way, shape, or form, as I really do like the bright green. It does kind of give me that, you know, that gamma radiation kind of color look and feel, which I really do like. But when it comes down to kind of a more realistic approach to the Hulk, I definitely say that the Marvel Select Hulk definitely does embody that a little bit better. However, when we do look at the paint for the pans, I can honestly say that, you know, I'd probably give the competitive edge a little bit more to the Marvel Legends. As we take a closer look, we can see at the top of the pans where we do see it to kind of get tapered a little bit, and we see the tears. We do see that Legends went ahead and decided to go with a little bit of white paint on the front, as well as on the rips on the bottom of the jeans that he's wearing. And I really do like that, you know, small additional detail touch. When we do look at the Select, we do see that the Select is missing that, unfortunately, but where the Select does miss that, it does make up for it with, you know, the different kinds of paints that we do see in the pan. So if we do take a closer look, we can see that we have different kind of shades of purple, which I really do like because it does give the pans a textured look. It kind of does make it more three-dimensional in a sense. But no surprise there, as we generally know that the Marvel Select department generally has the upper hand in the paint department. So again, very pleased with the paint work on the Select, man. I definitely do feel like it has the more natural appearance between the two. And speaking of the more natural appearance, despite the similarities in the proportions and in the sculpt work of the overall figure, just taking a closer look at the muscular definition of the Select Hulk, it definitely does have a more natural look to it as opposed to the Legends. And a few examples that I would like to give to really show you the difference between the Select and the Legends is, if we go over here and take a quick look at the Legends over here on, you know, behind the elbows, we see that the Marvel Legends does kind of have this weird flap system, and it does kind of look very unnatural, especially from certain angles when you're looking at it. Certain people will look at that and really say that it's not really that much of a big deal, but then when I go over here and I take a look at the Marvel Select, we see that the Select version definitely has more of a natural bend to it, you know what I'm saying, as opposed to, you know, the Legends. And to me, this just looks a little bit more flush. Obviously, you still see the hinge there. We both know that it's an action figure, but when it comes down to, you know, just the overall more cleaner look, I would definitely give it to the Select in that department. Another area of focus when it comes down to the overall natural aesthetic flow of the figure is going to be where the diaphragm meets the ab crunch in the Marvel Legends. And it's not to say that it's horrible, but I do want to notate that because of the soft plastic that we have here, or more so soft rubber, which does allow the figure to achieve the thunderclap, which is a really cool feature. The one thing that I did want to notate that it does you know, aesthetically distort the figure to a particular degree. So you are going to notice that when the arms do touch, you are going to get a little bit of bunching of the plastic. But if you were to compare it over here to the Marvel Select, you can definitely see that the diaphragm cut here definitely has more of a more natural aesthetic flow to it overall. You know, despite that, you know, the differences, I still do think that, you know, the bunching of the plastic here is not really that bad, depending on, you know, how you want to look at the figure. But one thing I will notate with the feel is, you know, being that this is the softer rubber, it does somewhat take away from the maximum, you know, proclamation that Hasbro is basically, you know, putting out there. And, you know, if I were to give you, you know, both of these figures in hand and you had to pretty much, you know, fill them up, I think most people without seeing the packaging would probably think that the Marvel Select is the maximum figure, and that's just because of how the plastic feels. But apart from those minor differences between both of these figures, I still think that they're both sculpted relatively pretty well. But if I had to pick a winner in the aesthetics department, I'm gonna have to go with the Marvel Select. Now jumping over into the articulation department, starting off with the Maximum Hulk, I gotta be completely honest, this is where the Maximum Hulk really does shine. So starting off with the head, unfortunately we don't get that much range of motion going up, so that's about as far as you get. So if this was the side profile, as far as looking up, that is about as far as you would be able to get it going. Now as far as looking down, you do get a nice range of motion looking down, and he also does have some nice side pivots there too as well. And I do like the fact that, you know, this head is on a double ball peg because it does allow us to get some really nice head pivots, which does add to the character of this Hulk. Then coming down over here to the arms, we do get a relatively slight T-man pose. You are going to get a little of hindrance due to the bulkiness of the plastic. We also do get bicep swivel 360 degrees, which is really cool. And then we also do have single jointed elbows, which do allow us to get a 90-degree angle, which I really do like the fact. I really do hate these flaps though. Then included with these single jointed elbows, we also do have a swivel here at the forearms, which is really cool. I really do dig that. Then of course we do have the standard hinge on the wrists that go up this much and do go far back, about that far. Now the bread and butter for this figure was going to be in the diaphragm area, as it was going to allow us to essentially create the thunderclap effect for the Hulk. And as you guys can see, we are able to get that there. And that is one thing with this rubber diaphragm. As much as I am a skeptic of it, and I do think it is a bit gimmicky, I really do like that it does allow us to, you know, really get some really nice cool poses with this Maximum Hulk. So moving forward, he does get about this much range of motion, which is really nice there. But again, you do get some bunginess up of the plastic, of the rubber, and then moving back, he can go back about this far much as well. They are also ratcheted. They do go 360 degrees. Then coming over here to the diaphragm, they also do get that rotation, and you also are going to get that rotation here in the waist as well. We also do get some nice pivots there too, as you can see. And then as far as the pivoting for the forward direction, you're gonna get about this much, so not really much if I'm gonna be completely honest. And he can go back, you know, a little bit further than he can go forward. Not quite sure why we don't have a ball jointed waist. I really feel like, you know, these Hulk figures would really benefit from that. Then coming down over here to the legs, we can kick up a relatively decent amount actually, so he can get his legs to kick up pretty good. They can go back about this much. He also does have thigh swivel, which is pretty decent. As far as doing the splits, not bad for a bulky figure, especially Hulk. Then coming down here to the knees, we do have double jointed knees. We do have the pins there, which was a controversial point considering this is the Maximum Hulk. So take it or leave it. Then over here with the legs, we also do have some nice hinges, and then we also do get that nice added toe articulation, which I think was long overdue. So for the Maximum Select Hulk, we are going to get, for the most part, maximum articulation. It does deliver in the articulation department, I will give it that. Now jumping over to the articulation for the Marvel Select, everybody knows right off the bat that Marvel Selects are notoriously known for having not the best articulation. However, I can honestly say that for this Select Hulk, it is not that bad. So starting off with the head, we do get a pretty decent range of motion looking up, and I could honestly say that it is actually a better range of motion than the Legends. So we do get a better range of motion looking up. Then looking down, we also do get it about this much, which I think is a pretty decent motion. And then similarly to the Maximum Hulk, his head is on a double ball peg, so it does allow us to get some really nice pivots with the head, which does add a lot to the character here. So coming over here to the arms, we also do get a slight T-man pose with a little bit of hindrance due to the bulkiness of the shoulders. Then we also do have his arms that do go around 360 degrees, so really do like that. We also do have 360 degrees bicep swivel too as well. Now the plastic for this is very sturdy, so you are going to get a bit of resistance, so be mindful of getting some paint chip. You don't want that. Then you also do have here some single jointed elbows, which are really cool. We does allow us to get the 90-degree angle, which I think is really cool without that nasty flap design with that the Legends has. I don't know why they continue to do that. Then we also do have the wrist here that does hinge back and forward. Unlike the Legends though, we don't have any swivel here at the forearm. Then coming over here to the diaphragm, unfortunately we don't have any butterfly joints, so we're not going to be able to get that same butterfly clap, thunderclap that the Select Hulk has. But if you're curious to see what it would look like, this is the closest you would be able to get his arms to come forward. Unfortunately, we're not able to get his arms to go back. Then coming over here at the diaphragm, we do get 360 degrees over there. We do get some nice pivots going side to side. Coming forward, he does have about this much, and moving back, he has about that much. So a pretty decent range of motion. Then moving over here to the legs, this is where we do have some differences. The Legends, for some reason or the other, does not have any movement here. So over here at the upper thigh cut, we do have some movement there, and then we also do have the rotation here as well. We also do have the double jointed knees, and it does allow us to get that 90-degree angle. And then we also do have the hinges here as well. Unfortunately, we do not get the toe articulation that the Maximum Hulk has. But apart from the toe articulation and the rubber diaphragm for the chest, the articulation is essentially the same, and I can honestly say that for a Marvel Select figure, this Immortal Hulk actually is pretty good. But if I'm gonna keep it $150, I gotta give the articulation to the Maximum Hulk. You can really get some really nice, cool poses, man, and I really had a lot of fun with that. Now moving right along over into the accessories, starting off with the Maximum Hulk. I do know that the head sculpts were one of the issues that was a very controversial thing for a lot of people, for myself included. A lot of people didn't like the head sculpt, but after having these in hand in a while, they kind of start to grow on you. My particular favorite one happens to be this one here with the big gritted teeth that I know a lot of people hated, but I really like the animated look to this, man. And I really also do like the pink detail in there with the green eyes, man. They definitely capture the gamma radiation look inside of the Hulk eyes. And even here, taking a look here at the hair, we also do have these nice green streaks that kind of, bring out the highlight of the hair, which does kind of help bring out the sculpt. And I really do like that, man, especially with the pink detail around the gums, man. I do think that this is a very well sculpted head. And then over here, taking a look at this one here is my second favorite, as I do like the very expressive face. We also do continue to get the green streaks in the hair, and where I do feel like Hasbro kind of missed the mark with this one here is actually inside of the mouth. I do feel like the upper portion of there should be black to kind of give, the figure a little bit more depth in the mouth area over there. But apart from that, man, I also do like the way how the hair looks like it's blowing in the wind. So it's a real nice effect piece for your Hulk. Now, the head sculpt that did come with the Hulk, this one here is probably my least favorite, and I'm not quite sure why that is. I don't know if it's because I do feel like he does have somewhat slight of an underbite. I don't know if you guys can see that, or if that's just my eyes making tricks on me, but that's definitely what I get with this one. It's slowly growing on me, but still, out of all the three, I would say this one here is probably my least favorite. We do continue to get the green sculpt in the hair. I feel like maybe it's because he has a fade. I don't know. There's just something about the fade that's kind of throwing me off. And then he also does have the whited out pupils, which is a different look for the Hulk. And, it's okay. Not my favorite, but this is what does come standard with your Hulk. Then moving along over into the hands that we do get with it, we do get the selling point of the figure, which is the thunderclap hands. And I think that they're sculpted relatively pretty well. The only thing that I don't like about the hands, which I am going to get to in a moment, but first let's take a look at these fisted hands. Of course, you can't have, the Hulk without, his punching hands. So sculpted relatively pretty well, nice vein work in there. But going back to the clapping hands, we do have this effect piece here, which I think is done very well. However, the implementation as far as utilizing it for your thunderclap is a bit questionable, as there are no indentations inside the plastic for the Hulk to actually grasp onto, and that is quite the bummer, because when you are trying to pose this guy with this thunderclap action hit here, you are going to find it quite a bit frustrating, because it is going to fall out a lot. So I kind of do wish that Hasbro did a better job of implementing that, but being that this is very universal, you can use it for other figures in your collection too as well. So very nice. Then moving along over into this nice rocket here. I really do dig this. I know it's probably simple for a lot of people, but the fact that they threw this in there for us, I think it's pretty cool. Now, one of the cool features that this rocket has, it does have the ability to break apart like this, and then you do get the wires, you get the blue, you get the red. Then you also do have this fire effect piece that starts off with a bright orange, goes into a darker red. It can also be plugged out. I do wish that we would have had a little bit more metallic paint on the missile itself, but you know, I'm not gonna complain there. It's still a pretty decent accessory that does come with this Hulk. And then perhaps my favorite accessory in this whole entire set is going to be the swoosh hit effects, and I really think that this really adds a lot of character and a lot of value to the figure, man. The way how these came out are really executed very well. And one of the other things that I really like about this is that if you were to actually take one of the hands, you can actually get it to sculpt around the actual fist, so it does fit in there really well. And I think that, you know, Hasbro did a really good job with the execution of this. And you can also use it for other figures. I know that it does mold directly onto the Hulk's hand, but if you are a little bit creative, you can actually get some really cool stuff going on with that. So that's the accessories for your Maximum Hulk. Then moving right along over to the select accessories, we don't have as much as we do with the Maximum Hulk, but we still do get quite a few. And starting off here with this head sculpt, you know, this one here was one that, you know, initially I did not like when I first got the Immortal Hulk. I'm not gonna lie to you, there was just something about the left, or in this case, realistically, the right side of his face here that just kind of threw me off. I don't know if it was the paint, but I think it was more so because I preferred to just have a normal, regular, gridded, you know, teeth kind of looking Hulk, as opposed to, you know, having this robotic feature here, especially since on the main body of the figure, there are no other robotic features. But I still do like, you know, what they gave us here. I do like the paint work. I do like the details that they did give us. We could see, you know, some of the yellowing in the teeth and even the dark tan pink for the gums, man. And, you know, one thing that it doesn't have, like the Legends, we don't have the green streaks in the hair, but the sculpt is still sculpted really well, man. And I really do like the fact that, you know, we did still get this. You know, over time, I've learned to grow an appreciation for it. Then moving along over to the default head sculpt that does come with the Hulk in its original packaging. We do have this head sculpt here, and man, I really do like this here too as well. I know a lot of people did not like it initially because they felt like, you know, it kind of gave the expression like it was yawning, but me personally, I really mess with this, man. We don't have none of the green streaks in the hair, unfortunately, like the Legends, but I still think it's sculpted pretty well. And I also do like the paint attention to the detail inside the gums, man. This guy really does look like he is one beastly of a man. So very happy with the accessories that we got with the Select. However, if I'm gonna keep it $150, we're gonna have to give the accessories department over to the Maximum Hulk, as the accessories that it does come with definitely adds a lot of value to the character. And there it is. So that being said, there is your Marvel Legends comparison between the Maximum Hulk going up against the Diamond Marvel Select Immortal Hulk. What do you guys think? Do you guys think the Marvel Select is still the definitive version of the character, or do you think that this new Maximum Hulk figure on the block is the new one to dethrone the Diamond Select? In my personal opinion, I'm still gonna go with the Diamond Select Marvel Select Immortal Hulk. There's just something about the overall quality of the figure. Now, I do understand that you're not going to get as much articulation as you do get with the Maximum Hulk, but the feel and the overall quality of the figure, as well as the sculpt work, as well as the paint work, and just the small intricate details, really makes this Hulk stand out on your shelf. The Maximum Hulk is a really cool and it is a really nice figure, and I do like the new innovative ideas that they've implemented with the rubber torso. I do like the fact that we are finally able to achieve a thunderclap with one of our Marvel Legends Hulk figure, which was a very long overdue thing, so I'm very happy to have that. But I still got to give it to the Select. When I do tally up the points, the amount goes to the Select as well as the aesthetics, but for the articulation and the accessories, I have to give it to the Maximum Hulk, as the accessories really is one of the big selling points with that figure. Granted, some effect pieces could be implemented a little bit better, speaking in regards to the thunderclap effect piece, but apart from that, you still get quite the amount of accessories that works really well and adds value to your Hulk. So once again, guys, thanks for checking out another episode of Packed In Action Figure Reviews, where we give you that action that's packed in. If you guys like the content that you've watched on the channel so far, please do me a favor. Please like and subscribe, as it tremendously helps out my channel in the YouTube algorithm. I would greatly appreciate it. You guys have a good one.